Welcome everybody to another CTC software webinar. Today we're going to be talking about the project suite from CTC software and all of the tools that are involved in there. So this is going to be kind of a high level. I'm going to go through and kind of explain to you a little bit about how the tools are set up and some of the things we need. Won't be much of unfortunately, a live demo. We'll touch on some things, but more to get you familiar with CTC CIM Project Suite. So thank you for joining us today. My name is Tony Crick. I'm the Civil Product Manager here at CTC Software. So those of you who may be seeing this for the first time, we have a project suite and our manager suite of tools, and they're productivity tools that are intended for the everyday Civil 3D user. It will work in the last 4 versions back to Civil 3D version 2021. We just released a new version of our CIM tools. We'll see some of that today a little bit. It's 25.3. So if you have our tools, you can go to the About and then download the latest update. If you don't have our tools, maybe you'll see something in here that intrigues you a little bit and gets you to give it a try. We offer a 14-day free trial, and some of the tools that are in here will be free in perpetuity for you. So you will not need a license for them. We'll show you what those are. So as I said, it's the CIM Project Suite, and what it's really designed for is just taking some of the everyday tedious tasks out of Civil 3D and then automate them. And most of it's pretty intuitive, and the interfaces are pretty easy to navigate through, and all of the objects that we create and edit in the project suite are native Civil 3D objects. There are no proprietary objects created by CTC. We do leverage all of your styles, any annotation styles, Civil 3D styles, to get our jobs done. And that way we can ensure that any drawings that we have created are totally compatible with any Civil 3D user, whether they have our tools or not. So today we're going to show you some of the key features of some of the tools, a little bit of how to automate some of those workflows by creating some templates and stuff to help speed up those repetitive tasks. And then we'll see the tools as quickly as we can in the interest of time here, and show you what the setup is, and then you'll discover how you can streamline your project workflows. So as you see here, here's the project suite ribbon that will come with the CIM Project Suite. And the light green ones, as I mentioned before, are our free tools. And if you are, as I said, if you download the trial, those will always be available for you. So as I stated before too, they're really just created to automate your design process, and all the way from begin to production. And all users, no matter the level, can benefit from these tools. The learning curve on some of these is pretty easy. Others are a little more intense. So we'll kind of show you that a little bit here. So let's go through the tools, what we have. Let's start with the first. As I back up here, today I'm going to go left to right, starting with the survey tools, a little bit of an explanation on those, a little bit of an explanation on our piping tools, our grading tools, touch the corridors a little bit, and then our general tools. We have a data wizard tool for creating legends, and then our sheet generation tools. So first off is our survey tool. And we have our feature line to alignment. What this does, it will convert any feature line or survey figure into an alignment and profile. The profiling is very similar to the native stuff. It's really just combined into one. And then we have our survey sweeper. So that will help us to manage our survey points and figures in our survey database. We also have point file converter. What this does is it translates point files between different code sets. So if you're out there shooting and you're using different codes, your surveyors, if you have an in-house code and you're shooting for another consultant or a government entity and they have their own code sets, well, your surveyors won't have to know all of that. They can go out, shoot one set of codes, and then we can translate those at the end so that they match whoever we're doing the work for. And this tool does not require Civil 3D. It works totally outside. If you download it, it will come on your desktop so you can get at it from your desktop. Oh, I can't drag that over. But it will be on your desktop for access. So if someone's using it, they do not need Civil 3D to do it. So I have a drawing set up for that here to show a little bit about that. So let's jump to that drawing. So feature line to alignment. Let's do that one first. All I do is I open it up. I select a feature line or a survey figure. That's a survey figure right there. If I click this, we see that it's a survey figure. And so we can create an alignment out of that. So open the tool, pick it, go through some standard Civil 3D native naming stuff here. And then we don't have to do a profile separately once we created it. We do all of that right here. So pretty simple, all the same settings that we have. You can apply design criteria if you choose, but just really quickly pull that out and then draw it in a profile view. So since I picked it, actually I'm not going to waste time doing it, but it will create it right here. And so that's what that one does. Well, there it made put the labels on there because I said okay. So there, it's an alignment right now. Survey sweeper. What that does is when you bring in your points and you create figures out of them, you get a database with things like this, where things have been repeated over and over and over. Every time you go to process your line work, you keep getting the same thing. You can't get it out of there. Well, survey sweeper will take and delete that right in the survey base right here. So I just go and click whatever one I want out of there. I want that survey figure. Let's get that out. And we can do points too. So I can get that out, and maybe I have a bad point right here. I can click all of that and they will be gone from my database. It gives a report right here and they are gone. So you see it fixed up the line work there, here. And now if I re-import it or reprocess my line work, they won't come back. So point file converter. When you open it, you're going to get this right here. I have another. So when you open it, you're going to get this dialog box right here. And this is where you set the things you need for your translation file. You will go get it and you will use that as your translation. Wherever you choose to put that will come up there. What column you want to convert is set in here. That's all. When you do the convert, we can set a prefix, a suffix, and then we can save it to a location. So if you haven't used this before, if you're setting it up for the first time, you would want to open this sample translation file, which is going to get you this right here. And that walks you right through what to do. It includes any coding, any line work that we have. We can add all of that in here as well. So when we re-import, you will get that line work. So we can add prefixes or suffix or prefix, old prefix, new prefix. We can do this with a comma delimiter. We can do it with space. We can change a lot of things in here. So it sounds kind of complicated, but it really isn't that difficult. If you go through, over here is a quick little instruction guide. Follow these instructions, and everybody in your survey crew will be happy, I promise you. I should have mentioned as we go along here, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the question panel, and we will try to get to them at the end if there's time. So the next set of tools I want to talk about is our piping tools. We have 4 separate tools included there, with Pipe Planner having an extra pull down. Anytime you see that little caret to the right, that means there's more tools involved there. So Part Swapper, what this does is it will swap a multiple pipe network parts, structures, and pipes simultaneously, parts including pipes and structures. Well, we can do that simultaneously. Have one here to show you. Let me find it. This one right here. Let me come to this drawing. So I'm going to quick open these up and just show you how they work. So a part swapper, what this does is it will find, and you can do this in plan or profile. So I pick my parts, and it didn't like that. Whatever I did, I think I had a null structure. It didn't include that part list, but I can come back here and I can do it again by selecting. I can do an entire network if I want to. I'll get 2 networks here. And then we have our parts right here. And we can choose from different parts lists to select from. And then what do we want to replace is right here. And then our replacement pipe. And we can retain the size of either one of those. So we have 25 structures and 24 parts within that network. And that one is a free tool. So next in that is our pipe planner. What this does is it edits already created pipe networks, and you can do them live in your drawing, or we can export them to a spreadsheet to be done that way, and then we would use the import spreadsheets to update our drawing. So let me jump back to that same drawing. We'll show you what that interface looks like. Hope you guys can see my cursor okay. So, excuse me. So, Pipe Planner has the caret has 2 right here. You would start with this right there, the top one, the Pipe Planner, straight up the table, and you get a view like this. And we also support pressure pipe networks. I don't have one in here, unfortunately. But then we can choose which we want to do. We can do them both. We can do one at a time. I'm going to leave it on the storm. And we get this matrix right here. So with that, we get listed out all of the parts that are in here if I hit the All tab. If I want to narrow it down to structures, I do just this. And this will give me my pipes. And this is populated either from a template or by using this table over here. So I can collapse all these if I want, if I'm looking to add something. Let's go back to structures. Let's see what's in there. So I see I probably want some alignment information. So I just come in here and I hit the filter. I can just say align, and I see what's popped up there, and then I just simply push it over. So this tells me what alignment to reference it to, and I can change these on the fly. Anytime you see a white box in here, that is an editable field. So I can change the name of it, description. I can do some elevation editing here, reference it to a different surface if I want. I only have finished ground in here. So anything you see there, you can edit right in the table here and then apply it. And if you need to create something, this is a good tool for creating staking sheets too, if you want to get that out of there. So we can rearrange these by simply selecting. I can select this whole group if I wanted it to be description and the reference alignment or the station offset. Let's find the station offset. So if I get the structure station, I push that over. If I wanted to have it alignment station, I just pick any one of these boxes and I can come and do a shift here, and I do a right click and move columns right. So once I did that, we have now this structure station is right there. I accidentally selected the main. I can reselect these and I can move those right. Left, right, you saw we can do it either way. And if we don't want some of these in there, if we only want to edit our fields, I can click this. I can do this two ways. I can say right click and I can remove the column, or I can use this little arrow right here that's going to push it back into this grid. So there's some other settings in here too. As you're using our tools, if you ever see this options tab, you'll want to set that. That's controls in most tools where our template locations go when we create them and where we can get them from. So there's some other settings in this particular one. We can do catchments for that kind of thing. So then if we come down here, this sets our export path, and then if we want to export that to a Excel spreadsheet, we simply do that, and we can, once we've selected one, we can create a new sheet. We can write into an existing, a number of different options in there. So I'm not going to save anything I did there. Okay, so let's go back to that. That's Pipe Planner. So as we go along here, the next one you can see working left to right is our Pipe Designer. And what this will do is it will design network runs between parts. We can do the entire network. We can do just certain selections of our network. And we can do some modifications by elevation, slopes, and we can interpolate. We can apply rules-based editing too, which will let us know if we've violated anything. And the last one there is Parts Tagger, which we can use to change any user-defined pipes and structures within the network. And we can choose them individually or by network. So let me pop that drawing back open. And we'll show you how that works. So if I select Pipe Designer, I can pick this in plan or profile of the plans or the parts I want to choose from. So you see down here, it's in my command line, it's telling me to pick what I want to edit. So if I do this in profile, I'll do it from there to, we'll just do one real quick. I'll do from there to there. And you'll get this table right here. So if I want to do those in the opposite direction from downstream to upstream, I simply hit my reverse and you see how this all changes right here. At any time, I can zoom to any part that I select, and I can add more parts. So I can come back here. If I didn't like what I had, I could come and I pick from there. Say I want to go the entire length to here, pick that. Now I get them all. So we can do that for any pipe run that we have. So then here we have some edit options. If I want to edit by elevation, I can come in here and here's some elevations I can change. If I change this one being the beginning of the run, it will come and recalculate all of this stuff through. And again, I can edit these at any time. Here's one we violated our rule on. If we violated the rules, you will get that right there. Here's where I apply the rules to it, but this is straight up from the rules that I have set to it. Here's where I can interpolate. If I hit my slopes, edit my slopes. Here's where I can do some interpolating of slopes. I can pick all the structures I want. So it's 101 to 102 with pipe 1 in between, and so on. So pipe 1, pipe 2, pipe 2, 3, 101, 102. So I can do some interpolating, and I can pick any set of those that I want to. And here I can set my minimum cover too if you have some restrictions in your area for depths. I know most municipalities and land development cities, whatever they do. So we want to do that. And again, we have our options tab up here, and this controls what we see in this table form right here. So if I just start turning some of these off, I'm just going to randomly turn a few off, say okay. So here's what we're seeing now. So if you just want to narrow it down to a few things you're doing, this is where you control that. So I'll turn a couple of these back on again, invert 1, invert 2, probably want the slope, and I'll turn on the rules just so you can see and the status, and I'll say okay. And we see that that violated that rule. And here's what we violated, maximum length. So we get reports like that. And anything we do to it will be done right live in the drawing. So you see we have 0.73 as a slope right here. If I make this -1, for instance, I can pick the first one. And if I come in here and I grab this corner and I drag this down, come on, try that again. All right, I got it better that time. There we go. So it updates all of those as a run. If I tell it to apply, we'll see this update right here. So I hit apply. You see right here on the right, it changed it to 1%. It recalculated everything through here, all of my inverts, which I don't have turned on, but it recalculates everything in here instantly. So once I say okay, I come out of there, we see that those have all been updated. So that's Pipe Designer. Parts Tagger, we said we'll change the values for these pipes and structures in here. Let's go up to the plan view here. Oh, and I can undo too, by the way, at any time. Just like AutoCAD, I can undo this. So if I undo, well, I'm not going to, I'm afraid. But we can undo that too. So let's go to Parts Tagger. If I click it, okay, it wants to say down here. Hang on a sec. I hit the wrong thing. Parts Tagger. Okay, so I can select them. I can go and pick in the profile view if I want. I can pick all in the profile view. I'm just going to grab a couple of these real quick to get the dialog box open so we can see what that looks like. So we get something like this. So we see we can pick it by pipes or structures, and then some things we can change in here. We can change our material for our structures, the frame type. I don't have any in here, but if you did, you could change that there. different grade types, your cover depth right there. We can add some descriptive notes right here. We can apply it to a surface and an alignment, all of this at once. We can do those by the entire network. We can add all parts. If I click all parts, now we've got several more. I can clear those and then select individually. I can select by network as well. If I click that, I get this right here where I can pick from that. So a little bit on that for parts tagger. So moving on here, we have our grading tools. So we have our auto grader. What this does is it grades from an existing feature line. So it's all dynamic. The grading models from a single native feature line, and we use that as our parent line. Then from that, we produce what we call child feature lines, which are really just using basically stepped offset from the native tools right there. And with that tool, we can create the surfaces from the families, and we can add those surfaces to an existing, or add those to an existing surface if we want to. And then what it will do is it will create break lines, and we can add those to a site. And with that, once they're in there, we have really native control over that. So let's open that up real quick, because this does take a little bit of setting up to do. Where's my auto grader? Here it is. Oh, okay. So auto grader, how it works. So this surface right here was created using auto grader, using our feature lines. So when we open up auto grader, we're going to get this right here. And again, we have our options tab. Our options tab opens this right here, which tell us where to look for our templates. If we create a template, if we save one here, it's going to look here. So if you make these and you use those a lot, you create a template out of those, and we can share those through our network by pathing it right here. So that's how we do that. And then we have some other default settings for things right here as we come through, and these show up in the format. I'll show you that in a second. We have some standard frequency things, and new recently is to set different colors. So be able to see what I'm working on. Now, these aren't too complicated of ones, but when you do have those, what this will do, so it changed my base color. And if I open my family, it's going to highlight the one that I'm working on. So this one, this set relates to there. We have different settings of what we want to do, distance at a slope, elevation, slope to surface, a lot of different things. Once we set those, we have different settings over here we can get at. Sometimes we need a target. If I do a slope to surface, for instance, it's going to ask me for a target surface right here. So I have to set some of that right here. When I do that, and you go through these and you set up your families. Okay, then your formatting is here. This is where we talked about the default stuff. These can be individual. These can be run by the default family if you want to. If you want to set these how you like, you just simply click these, click that off, and then just start clicking here and entering, entering what you want right here. So anything time I click this, it's going to grab the default stuff. So that's where that comes from. And we have custom naming. If you would like to name those differently, you can come here and click this custom naming. And we can come here and we can give it a name. So we can name this whatever we want right here, and it will name our feature line in our tool space when we pull that up. So if we look at the feature lines in our tool space, they will have those names if we want. This button right here will set our break lines, how we want those to look, our build order, some other settings right there. That's on the fly, and we can copy any one of these for another one. If I make one of these and I want to copy it, I can do that. Here's where we set the feature lines that we want to use. Open on my other screen. There it is. So we can grab that in a number of different ways, by layer name, by object name from the site. We can do that. So there's a lot of different ways to select that. Once we have that, it's going to run this set right here along any of those. So we have more videos on those, but it's a very powerful tool. We can do it by range. And we have 3 different ways of creating these. We can do these parallel, as you see here. We have perpendicular, which will find the feature line and then run set distances as you define your family. And then we also have template insertion, which works great for putting house pads, for example, out there. And so that is another selection that we have. And then it's created. So if I come in here, let me just show you real quick. And that's my parent feature line. Here's a child feature line that I grabbed right here. Child feature line that was created using AutoGrader, all included as a break line within this surface. So next, let's move to Earthwork Processor. So what Earthwork Processor will do, it will calculate detailed earthwork volumes by region in a set. You can set multiple subgrade depths to those regions. Whoops. So let me open that up. I'm afraid I'm going to run out of time. Where's my, here. So we'll show you what that looks like. So if I open up Earthwork Processor, we have 2. The offset regions is here for if you define an area as a polyline, they can't touch. Your regions cannot touch and they cannot overlap. They have to be closed polylines to start, or feature lines. So I simply come in here and I open up my Earthwork Processor. And I start creating sets. I create a set from here if I want to delete it here. Again, we have some more options over here of what we want to do. Surface creation, we can make them in separate folders. We can assign some individual shading to these, more controlled by your surface selection. And then how do we want this reported? So that's in that options. So we set these by region. So if I want to know where this one was, if I didn't know, I would click this. I zoom to, and it shows me it's that area right there. So I need to give it, I can give my polyline elevation, or I can do it right here. So 2 ways of doing it. When you create the polyline, you give it an elevation. It's simply an elevation from the top to your subgrade. And they can have all different elevations if we like them to. So corridors, we have a number of corridor tools here as well. We have our corridor cleanup. And what this does is it helps to clean up, again, it's a free tool. It helps to remove corridor targets from selected corridor baselines and regions. And we can do this selection by surface, width, offsets, slope, or elevation. And then our corridor mapper, we map subassemblies to layers, styles, objects, names, or we can mirror from other assemblies. And we can automatically assign those targets to the appropriate assemblies based on what we use for that. I'm going to step through here to the next slide. So also in Corridor Mapper, we have our setup targets. We have our auto map targets. Our setup targets is user-linked layers, styles, object names, and other subassemblies. And we can automatically assign those targets to our corridors. And we can auto map those too. So we can automatically assign a new target object to the corridor with that. Then we have our rename layers and subassemblies within that corridor mapper. And what that will do, it will automatically rename the layers of the selected subassemblies per, there's different ways of doing it, I guess. We can add suffixes, we can name our layers that are assembling, there's different ways of doing it. And likewise, we can create layers from those subassemblies. So let me just open up, actually we're running low on time here, so let me go to the next slide here. We also have a corridor splitter, which will take our corridor and split it into two corridors. We can split a split corridor as many times as we want. We can select those by regions or baselines from a list in the drawing or pick it. And we can add custom names to the newly created corridors. All of these will be populated in our tool space. And then we can put them back together. So we can put any number of them back together, and that will delete them from our tool space and create just the one. And we can do that by selecting baselines and regions, and then set our frequency and targets, and it will put them all back together. Well, we'll include them what we had before. So I'll just open up a corridor drawing momentarily here, and we'll go through some of the corridor ones, corridor cleanup, just to show you what those dialog boxes look like. So we get something like this. Here's the list we talked about, and here's where we choose which ones we want to do. I can deselect all that, and here's where we set we want to remove. Do we want to remove our surfaces, our widths, our offsets? So a number of different settings in here. This will select the entire or deselect, and I can also pick them out one at a time. You see it zooms to where I'm at, so I can verify that, and I can do it within the drawing. So our corridor mapper, when we hit that, you saw from the PowerPoint, we can set up our targets. If I click my corridor, I get a dialog box that looks like this. And there's many different settings in here, very much like the Civil 3D one does. They recently updated, if you're doing that, we can do everything right here from one dialog box. We can do some filtering here. We can do our references by mirror or by reference. So here's what we talked about. You can mirror one of those. So if you want to flip it over, we can do that there. So a lot of different settings in here, a lot of different ways of helping to expedite your corridor editing. So let me cancel that one. Let me go back to this one. So I'll hit my, oh, I don't have any targets mapped. That can't be right. Let me try it again, just so I can get the dialog box up. Huh, okay. Well, I didn't map any. So you'll see that. Here's our rename, layers and subassemblies, and these are pretty basic. I'm not going to bother to go through those today. We're running very low on time. So those are our corridor tools. Next up, we have our General tab, which encompasses our Label Genie and Clash Seeker. Label Genie, probably our most popular between that and AutoGrader. With Label Genie, we can add labels to any object in your drawing, and we can do those in multiples. So, and then if things change, we can just re-add them and they'll update. And we can label things in model space. We can label them specific to a layout. We can even include other drawings if they have matching criteria. So we can define our label insertions. So different from your annotation tab, we can give it an XY where it's not completely dependent on your style. We can give it offsets, rotation, scaling, styles, and more. And we can label our pipe networks in plan and profile. Recently with 25.3, we can do multiple labels in profile on our structures. Then we can create templates for those that we do very often. So if I'm doing the same in a pipe network, if I'm doing the storm stuff all the time, I can create a template. I'll open up Label Genie. We'll show you all the different things. If you look at our help manual, there's a matrix. There is a matrix of what can be labeled. This is the help manual. I can open right from the tool. If I come down here and I pick this, it's going to take me right to it. And within there, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff that you can do with it. Here's the matrix I was talking about what we can anchor and what the property sets are, the things we want to label. So I'll just show you that right here. So here's all the things. You can pull these from the matrix. You can see what we can all label here. So if I go ahead and just pick one of my pipe network, for instance, things are going to change. So our anchor object is going to change depending on what we choose here. And I will say that we have included some templates, some label templates that started out in 25.1 or 2, I don't remember which, and they're in your C users public CTC software. Then there will be a folder called Label Genie, and all of these that you see right here will be available as a jumping off point. So they're not intended for you to use. You would pull one of these up, you would edit those as you see fit, and save them to a known location where everybody can get at them. For instance, comes already auto-populated with some things. So we need to select our network, what we want to label. I have to pick that in plan. I pick the plan, it's got 49 objects within that storm system it found. Some other things we have added here, as I talked about, that we can add multiples. If you want to put multiples on there, you would select this, and you can add another set of labeling. For networking, we come to our formatting tab, and we set some things here. So as we pull this up, we got our pipes, we got our structures, we set our plan, we set our profile, and that will get us the labeling for whatever we are trying to label. So that's how all of these labels were put on here. So what you see right here, they're dependent on your Civil 3D style, how those land. We did change how they give you a little more control right out of the box, how they get placed. So to check that out. So that's quickly Label Genie. Got a few more I got to get to here. So Clash Seeker, also part of our General tab. What this does is it looks for collisions or conflicts between drawing objects set by you. We can do it looking in a 2D or a 3D. It will find horizontal and vertical collisions. If it's a solid, it will find that's 3D around there. We can add points when we find a conflict. We can create a table within the drawing for those conflicts. We can export it to an Excel spreadsheet, which we can then review, someone can review, and we can pull that back in and resolve our conflicts that way. Let me just pull that same drawing back up so I can open up Clash Seeker. And this is what we get right here. Here's where you set your clash set. I don't want to run one of these. Some of these warnings, some of these will take a little bit of time if it's a pipe network and surface when it's going around. When it's looking all around, so it's a solid, and you'll get a warning that's going to take a little bit, not very long, couple minutes only. But this is what you get right here. Here's how we set them. We click this to see what we want to select. In this case, I selected something manually, the pipe network. I went pipe network to pipe network. I have a conflict right here. Here's where we set where we want it to look, our buffer right there. And these are going to change for different things. This one should have a different setting. So here it's going to look above and below that feature line to find any of our conflicts. And here's the report we get right here. And here we can export it. And we can save these if we want to save these as templates to bring in later. If we're always doing a storm, or if we're always checking gas lines to surfaces, we can do that right there. And this is where we add the points to that. In our options is where we set how we want those points to look when they come in. We have some other settings here, what we want to get at, and the same with how we export this stuff. So we can pick and choose from these. We can rename these too if we want to. That doesn't have to say that. You have some control there. So moving on, our data wizard. This is a tool that we use to create legends, tables, and spreadsheets from Civil 3D entities that you select how you want those to go. The first step is to do your setup table. This is the main portion of it. We use that to define the objects that we want to include in our legend, our tables, and or our spreadsheets. And then from there, we choose the objects we want to pull out, and it's a great tool to be used for quantity takeoffs as well. Then we have the from template. If we had set up a template, we just simply bring that in. We don't have to go through and pick everything. And again, these use Civil 3D styles for your tables. And then if we change something, we just simply hit the update table and the table will repopulate. Let me quickly open that up, show you what that looks like. And we can do these specific to a layout as well. So if I have a legend like this right here, it's only going to include whatever I tell it to that's in this viewport right here, for instance. I can certainly do everything in the model space, but they can be specific to these two layouts if we want. So great thing to do if we're doing tree counts by sheet. We can pull those out. So the first step, go to Data Wizard. We open that up, and I think it's a 4-step process to go through. Here's where we could bring in a template if we already had one. Do we want to use the current drawing or an XREF? Here's how we would limit it to those layouts I showed before. So the Site 1 layout here, we pick those. And then within there, we can say all viewports, or we can do it to selective viewports if we want. So if we did it and we made one of these, the table over here in model space, and we viewport it in, it won't get included. And then, so do we want to include partially visible objects? So if you've got a tree or something that's not quite in there, we would want to probably count most of that. And we can do it specific to paper space too. So if we're doing keynotes or things like that, that we're putting right into paper space, we can pick this button right here, which is going to only include those. And we can also do it in additional drawings if all the criteria matches. So the next thing we come through is we come and we find out what's in the drawing. We see what do we want there. If I check them all and I hit my refresh, it's going to give me a report of everything that's in here. I can filter those out. I can combine them. I can separate them. I can separate them with a summary. I can weed some of these out. I can exclude some of these things out. There's a number of different ways of getting your reports out of here. Pull things by site. The drawing's been around a while. I got a lot of sites in there. Then I come to here and it starts giving me a report of everything that's in there. So I got a number of survey figures that are in there. I'm getting a count. Great for trees, for getting tree counts or lengths of curb. We can pull lengths of curb out of here. A lot of stuff like that we can do. We get to, oops, let me back up one. I want to show you the data to extract. This is where these are coming from. Anything I click on here, if I say an area, that's added to the table. So that's what we're looking at here. Next, this is what you're going to see when you create your table. And then here's where you choose your table, whatever tables you have in your drawing that you have created with your annotation. It's going to know those, and that's what you select those. Here's where you kick that out to an Excel if you wanted to. And at any time, we can save this as a template. Here's some settings of how they're displayed, what they look like. When you are creating your table, this will take a little bit of playing with in most cases to get that looking like you want. Once you do, save that as a template, bring it in every time, and you won't have to mess with it again. So our next tool is our sheet generator. So we can automate our sheet production here. Works a little easier, a little better than our view frames natively with AutoCAD. Same principle, but the real power in this is when things change, we can update. We don't have to go back through. We can update those and recreate our layouts. And so this one requires an alignment. This is the alignment base. We have a site base too. So we want to set those along an alignment. So we put our view shapes on alignment, then we pull our profiles in, which are done using actually native Civil 3D profile tools. Then we adjust those profiles to get all of our stuff on there the way we want them, our pipes, everything, so we like it. Then we create our profile view shapes around our profiles. And then that last step is to create our layouts for our sheets, not for our sheets. And then, like I said, they change. So the basic workflow is from top to bottom. So as you see there in the screenshot, first you want to do your view shapes, then your profiles, then put your networks to the views, adjust how they look. If you have any Civil 3D objects or anything else that didn't fit before, you can move those. You can grab those. That's what the move on profiles is about. Then you create your profile view shapes to create your layouts. I can use, I think I have it, this one also. So here's what it looks like when it's done. I'll step through this real quick, but this is what it creates. Your view shapes, that's your viewport in your layout tab. What you need is you need a template or a layout to duplicate that has your blocks in there, a print block and a profile print block. They're drawn at 1-to-1. I would certainly share those with you if you want to. They're just basic rectangles that are a block that fit that space, and then it scales those. So I'm going to step through this kind of quick as we're running very low on time. And there is a question I will get to at the end here. But you come here, you set the alignment you want it to go to, new for 25.3. So right here, I talked about that before. This is where you know what version you're on. If you want to get the latest, you'll click right here and it will take you to the website to get at it. But so we set our alignment right here, and if I wanted to select where it goes, I can just pick in the drawing. I don't really care where it is right now, so don't get all bent out of shape that it's odd. But the main thing I want to show you here is that when you do it, you have to add it to the matrix. Even if you're doing the entire length, it now has to be added to the matrix. So with this, I can do a stretch here. Let's say I can do a stretch here, and I can do a stretch there. So I can do this in multiples if I would like to. Then we set where those land, And here's where we pick our block and the layer it goes on. If we don't, we can create it. I come to my next tab. Here's where I give it my distance that I want it to go. I can set some alignment data to avoid if I don't want it cutting through a manhole or another alignment or an appurtenance from a pressure network, anything like that. I turn that on and I set my buffer right here. If I run it and I see there's nothing there, I can click that, and that will remain, and that will always be there. And here's where our match lines go, and then our drafting guides are just these right here, and they're only there to help you manually adjust these view shapes. So as long as that view shape lands inside of your view block, I don't think I showed you where the scaling comes from. As long as it lands in there, it will print on your sheet. Here's the scale right here. By default, it will take whatever your drawing is set at. So then you simply come and you create your profiles as such. I can push my networks to my profiles right here. If I come and I say networks to views, again, new to sheet generator is I can select these, so I can make a whole bunch of different profiles, and I can put in there if I just want my storm on one, my sanitary on one, I can separate those out, and it won't care how you do that, because you can do another set of layouts right here. So when you tell it to create it, you're going to pick the view shapes that it puts around these profile views. And then when you create them, you'll select those. So that's how you will get, you can do one for sanitary, you can do one for pressure pipes, whatever. So then once we get all that in there, we just hit the create layouts. And this is standard, just like you did if you created it natively. It's going to make you save this so it knows what it's looking for. And then we set everything here. Once you open this up, it should auto-populate to what you have there. And we can do it in plan and profile, plan and plan, profile and profile, plan only, profile only, all up to you, how you pick that. And we can put that, like I said, we put it into a sheet set. I might get an error here. But we can, at the final step right here is where we select to do it in the, yeah, bye-bye. Thanks, AutoCAD. Okay, well, that was the end of it anyway, I guess. Let me get back to my PowerPoint. Just I was going to show our sheet generator for sites is the same thing, basically, but it's not alignment based. We can set it in a grid format that you choose with any rotation you choose. We can do that individually by individual shapes. We can do it inside of a region, and it will create a grid pattern for your site. And we can also create a clipping to place match lines. And then again, we create those either in the drawing or a sheet set, how you see fit. And again, we have the update when things change. So with that, that's all I have. That was a very quick overview, I guess. Kind of get you the feel of what this project suite of tools looks like. So thank you for those of you who joined us today. I appreciate this. If you're watching it on YouTube, and by the way, this will be available on YouTube shortly after this. If you're watching it on YouTube, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the YouTube. So with that, thank you for those of you who joined us today.